I want to remind you the rate of our population is growing at the moment. The food waste will become higher or bigger as well. So if we cannot stop to generate the food waste, so it can create food scarcity, and the food scarcity will create hunger, and the hunger will create poverty, and poverty will create criminality.
Welcome to Brave. Learn from Southeast Asia's best tech leaders. Build the future, learn from our past, and stay human in between. No BS on success. I'm Jeremy Au, venture capitalist, serial founder, Harvard MBA, science fiction nerd, and dad of 2 daughters. Every week, we debate startup news, interview changemakers, answer listener questions, and share personal insights. Join our movement of over 40,000 members and get transcripts, resources, and community at www.bravesea.com. Stay well and stay brave. Did you know that you can get a free business class trip to Japan every year with Haymax AI? Haymax is a rewards app where 500 brands like Apple, Shopee, Amazon, Agoda, and even banks reward you for your loyalty by contributing towards your dream vacation. Through the Haymax app, every transaction you make earns you Max Miles, which you can redeem for free travel at more than 25 airline and hotel partners. Sign up at haymax.ai now to get a 1,000 Max Miles head start. Turn your daily transactions into dream vacations. Your business can also leverage the highly cost-efficient and desirable loyalty currency called Max Miles that has no expiry, no fees, and instantly one-to-one transferable to 24 airlines and hotels to acquire new customers and drive repeat sales with no integration required. Reach out to Joe at haymax.ai and mention Brave to uplevel your rewards game and reduce your cost.
Hey Agung, really excited to have you on the show. You're here to talk about sustainability, but more importantly, within the context of Indonesia. So could you share a little bit about yourself?
Hey Jeremy, thanks for having me. So I'm Agung Saputra as the CEO and founder of Surplus Indonesia. I'm coming from environmental background. I was born in Sulawesi area, but I raised in remote area in Papua. So I experienced a huge education gap and food scarcity at the time. So when I moved to the capital city of Indonesia, Jakarta, and then I saw a lot of surplus food that still good, still edible and untouched, has been thrown away to the bin. So I'm eager to learn the environmental stuff in my college and my master. So that's why after I passed my master, I created Surplus Indonesia in order to prevent the surplus food not to throw away or end up in the landfill, but it can be consumed in a whole price to the customers.
So why did you decide to work on sustainability? Is it a big problem in Indonesia?
Yeah, after I pursue my master in Imperial College London, the UK, I have dilemma whether I have to stay to work as an environmental thought in the UK, or I can went back to Indonesia and then starting Surplus Indonesia. But the main driver for me to build Surplus Indonesia because Indonesia is devoted as the second largest food waste in the world, and it's keep mentioning when I did my master, so it keep annoying me because Indonesia become the second largest food waste in the world. I was asked by the teacher, how can Indonesia become a champion in every way? So that's why it drives me to want to contribute to Indonesia. So I just went back in 2019 and trying to gather the community youth that has a vision to fight food waste in Indonesia, and then created Surplus Indonesia during the pandemic.
Could you share more about what are the problems that Indonesia faces in sustainability?
Yeah, there's a lot. So every waste you can name it, we become at least top 3 in the world as the top polluter, ocean polluter, food waste, and food waste, or the top electronic waste as well in the world. Why? Because first of all, we have no specific regulation to manage the waste or prevent the waste as well. And second of all, the awareness to fight the waste in circular economy industry is not so mature compared to another countries. So that's why we have homework to do.
Yeah, so why does Indonesia have such a food waste problem? I mean, it's not the number 2 largest economy, right? Why is there so much food waste?
Because Indonesia one of the populous countries in Indonesia. We have a stigma in here. If we finish our plate, it becomes a rude misunderstanding for the culture. So that's why people in Indonesia, if they go to the department store or go to the restaurant, they have to not finish their meal. So it became the polite one for others to regard them that they are not very hungry. So that's why Surplus come in order to educate the market that if you order something, you have to finish it because that's the way to appreciate your meal and in order to appreciate the farmers and it can prevent to contribute to degrade the Indonesia food waster contributor for the ranking.
And then what are the other problems that Indonesia faces in terms of sustainability?
One of the major problem is biodiversity degrade because, as you know, we have so many tropical rainforests, but we creating a new city, new capital in Borneo. I think you might heard of, and so that's why our tropical rainforest is declining in terms of the size of it, and it creates the biodiversity degrading, and it like a domino effect to another challenges for the circular economy industry in Indonesia.
I think there's also a lot of other challenges as well, right? There's water and air pollution as well. That's what a lot of my friends say in Asia. Could you share more about them as well?
Yeah, the air pollution was right. It's like a couple months ago. We were aware, but it's too late for us when there was a huge smoke and then we cannot breathe and it creates a disease for everyone. And then the government was panicked at the time. So they created a small regulation for people in capital in Jakarta to use the public transport, but it's too late because it didn't cure the problem. So the problem is still there until now. We got the bad air pollution due to the mining activities as well that surrounding around Java Island. So that's why it needs more comprehensive action from the government to remove or moving the mining activities to not cross to the Java Island.
So I think there's a lot of different challenges that Indonesia faces sustainability. Why are founders interested in building sustainability for Indonesia? Because I mean, there's other businesses to build, right? Like education or tech or manufacturing. I know that you hang out with a lot of other folks who are in the sustainability space. So what's your motivation?
Yeah, from my perspective, before I started Surplus, there's only 3 or 4 climate tech startups. So it's very niche. No one wants to build the startup because there's no regulation and the market size not so big as the e-commerce and another marketplace. But as awareness for circular economy industry is growing, for example, now at the moment there's so many businesses like they created like a vegan restaurant or they created like a healthy lifestyle because after the pandemic, people consider that the healthy and the climate crisis is a very concern. So some of the entrepreneurship, they were thinking like circular economy is a blue ocean for them because it's less competitor compared to the red ocean, e-commerce or fintech. And second of all, they have patience because they experience or undergone the problem. Like maybe they were sick about the air pollution. So that's why they started air pollution prevention for their startup.
Tell me more about Surplus, the company that you built to tackle food waste.
So I mentioned earlier that Indonesia food waste really bad from my background as the scientist. So I tried to create a business model to prevent the overstock and imperfect produce by connecting the local food businesses like hotels, restaurant, or coffee shop to sell their overstock and imperfect produce at the window time to the customer at whole price. It's like a flash sale for every near expired product for businesses, and it can create a win-win solution for F&B business owners and the customer to gain recovery, and they can at least increase their awareness to combat the food waste. And
What have been your revenue or tractions and how much have you processed?
yeah, to be honest, we are not so like fast growing like the other startup because there's so many complicated challenges in Indonesia. We're still waiting for the momentum, but I can say that in the next 5 years, the market still growing because in the past 4 years, Surplus Indonesia experienced 3 to 5 times growth for the revenue. Like for example, in 23 last year, we experienced 3 times growth for the revenue. So it shows that the market is increasing and the awareness is increasing as well.
How does Surplus work? How does it work for a customer to move the extra food from one place to the other place?
Yeah, basically Surplus is, for example, Food Panda for overstock or like a GrabFood for offer. So the customer just download the app and then they will get notified about the surplus food nearby. They will open the app and they can choose their favorite surplus food. They can see a lot of information like how many items are left, the discounted prices, and the pickup time as well. After that, they can choose for the pickup method, whether they can pick it up by themselves at the store or using delivery services because we've been integrated with Bolt and Grab Express as well. Or they can just dine in at the hotel at the specific time. It's less than 1 minute and it's convenient, so people can get the item for the 50% off and they can indirectly contributing to prevent their food loss and food waste.
What were the challenges in setting it up? Is it like food quality or food hygiene going to be a big problem?
Yeah, that's the 1 million question to Surplus when we run the operation. So as the marketplace, we didn't take the responsibility for the hygienity or the food safety because the one that takes the responsibility is from the merchant side. but we have the do and don't or the regulation. Like if the merchants want to join, they will sign agreement first. The one that they upload is still edible and untouched. And if they receive a complaint, we will freeze the account first, and then we will re-educating them. But if they keep doing mistake, and they receive two complaints, we will ban the account forever. So that's how we manage the quality of our services. In the past 4 years, we didn't get any complaint about the quality or food safety and something like that.
Do you think food waste is going to get better or worse in Indonesia? If Indonesia is growing 5% year on year, the amount of food consumed probably goes up more than 5%, right? Maybe it goes up by 6 or 7 or 8%. So you think food waste is going to get worse or you think it's going to get better?
I want to remind you the rate of our population is growing at the moment. The food waste will become higher or bigger as well. So if we cannot stop to generate the food waste, so it can create food scarcity, and the food scarcity will create hunger, and the hunger will create poverty, and poverty will create criminality. We will undergo maybe someday food scarcity or food insecurity.
Do you think young Indonesians are more into sustainability now, or are they more into making money for their families and so on and so forth? Because recently we did a report. One of their findings was that Westerners are much more into sustainability, whereas Southeast Asian people are more into taking care and providing for the family. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say I'm not fully agree, because after running surplus in the past 4 years, it's so much easy to acquire the customer from the youth or Gen Z. Why? Because their awareness is better compared to the millennials or maybe the previous generation, because they have been exposure from maybe YouTube or social media in the early beginning. So they know about the urge to prevent the climate crisis and something like that. If we have heard about the Greta Thunberg, she's youth that has biggest awareness to fight climate crisis compared to our parents or compared to our friends and something like that. That's why one of the biggest market or biggest buyer persona in surplus is the youth or Gen Z, because the way they want to purchase something or the way they want to choose services, they will consider whether that brand have contribution to the social or environmental impact or not. If not, they will not choose it. They prefer to choose the one that maybe it's quite pricey, but at least they can contribute indirectly to that brand.
Could you share a little bit more about what your future expansion or product plans are?
Yeah, we have been known as the online marketplace for overstock and imperfect produce. This year, we just launched our new product. It's a offensor. It's a mini offensor in one of the dense area in South Jakarta, in Senopati. We have two products for the super supermarket. The super supermarket is a white label for product from the FMCG that they cannot upload it to our, but they just send it to us, and then we open the booth like a pop-up store to sell it to the end customers. And the second product is Juiceable by Surplus Indonesia. Juiceable is smoothies and juice bar that it's come from the imperfect fruit. So imperfect fruit that we collect from the supermarket and the supplier that being rejected, we cycling it into smoothies and then we sell it to end customer as well. So yeah, that's our product at the moment. We just run 1 month and it turns out that track is really good, and people like the smoothies from the imperfect fruit. So they like the story, they like the impact as well.
And that's very cool. And I think what's interesting is that there's a lot of waste everywhere, right? So there's food waste, obviously. There's also a lot of trash and recycling as well. How do you feel about all of that as well?
I'm learning waste management back in my master's. In Indonesia, they more focus on the waste management, not focus on the prevention. Because in circular economy best practices, just imagine pyramid, but it's in the other way around. This one. So the one that we should focus is the prevention one. For example, if you have leftover or maybe surplus food, before you throw away, you need to at least finish what you order. And if you can finish and then move to the second step, so you can donate to people, that food still edible and untouched. But if you cannot donate to the people, you can bring your food into your pet or animal so they can finish it. But if you cannot do the step 3, and you can go to the composting one. If you cannot composting the food waste, and then you can just throw away to the landfill. That's the correct way for the waste management. But in Indonesia, they focus more on the, if they have food that's still edible and untouched, they just throw it to the landfill. So they skip so many steps for the waste management. Maybe the not enough education for the society to grasp or understand the step for the waste management in circular economy.
So how bad is the waste management system now in Indonesia? Or how does it work?
Yeah. As far as I know, the incinerator is not the primary to become waste to energy in Indonesia due to the regulation and kind of all the tax and something like that. So the best practice is the conventional landfill. It's not the modern one, but it's conventional. They just throw away to the landfill and then it creates a massive landfill, a time bomb ticking, because one day the landfill cannot receive any rubbish into them and then they can become a disaster for everyone that live nearby. Because we experienced that landfill in one of the area in Bandung that it creates more than 12 people or 15 people died at the time due to the full of rubbish from the landfill, because the landfill is kind of like explosive from the methane gas that accumulated in the landfill as well.
Wow, that sounds terrible to hear. My condolences. But as in, so you're saying that these landfill are like time bombs because it's a giant pile, right?
Yeah, giant
I also
pile.
understand there's a lot of people, so they're still releasing methane gas. But there's also a lot of people who are recycling and they're scavenging or recycling themselves, right? They're taking recyclable parts out of the landfill.
Yeah, but it's not enough, because even though if you live in Indonesia and then you're trying to separate your waste, the plastic waste and something like that, but after you give them your waste, they will mix it again. So that's why.
What? They'll mix it up together again?
Exactly.
That was the point of separating it in the first place.
Exactly. So it kind of make me confused as well. But for the startup doing the waste management, like plastic recycling, they educate their customers through just sorting away their waste, and then they will pick it up by themselves. I mean, for the plastic recycling startup, and then they will sorting out which one has the highest economical value and something like that. So they won't give it to the scavenger, as far as I know.
Yeah. It reminds me of companies like Rico System, which is also doing waste management as well. A lot of other folks there, also a lot of waste management startups. When you look forward in the future, what are your hopes for the Indonesia sustainability scene?
Yeah, it's still growing. I mean, 4 years ago, the one that doing the circular economy startup is only surplus, ecosystem, waste for chain, and something like that. So it's only 4 or 5 startups. Now it's almost 100, but they are still not commercial yet. They are doing this because, first of all, the market is growing, even though the regulation is not ready yet. And second of all, most of them are youth or Gen Z that experience the climate crisis in their location or in their life. So they started to create the movement, even though they created maybe small community and something like that. So from my point of view, our sustainability startup or climate tech startup in Indonesia will be mature. And from the funding, it has been increased as well since 2020. The investor from overseas, they will look for the startup that not only get profitability, but generate impact to the social and environmental as well.
Could you share about a time that you personally have been brave?
The time when I became brave, when I decided to running out from my comfort zone. I think in the early podcast I told you that I was raised in remote area, and then I moved to the capital city, so I experienced the huge gap education. So I have two choices at the time, whether I give up, drop out, and then went back to the remote area, or encourage myself to catch up my achievements so I can pass my grades and then I can pursue my bachelor degree in one of the top university or pursue my master in math. So I decided to learn a lot from my life in remote area. And second of all, the time when I was brave is when I have to decide whether I stay in London to become environmental consultant and gain so much salary, or I can went back to Indonesia and then starting uncertainties like surplus, because no one has done before. And I decided to went back to Indonesia and created surplus. So that's the moment when I choose to facing the so many risks by myself, but I know the consequences, and I know the impact from myself and the people surrounding that using surpluses.
On that note, thank you so much for sharing. I'd like to summarize the 3 big takeaways I got from the conversation. First of all, thank you for sharing about Indonesia's waste time bombs in terms of the pollution. We talk about different types of pollution. We talk about the air pollution that the Indonesian government had to work to kind of try to solve, but unfortunately, some deeper rooted issues to it. We talk about the biodiversity challenge as well. But more important, we talked about the general waste problem where we had landfills, really bad for the local areas in terms of pollution, but also quite safety hazards as well. Secondly, thanks so much for sharing about food waste. I think it was very interesting to hear about how you think about food waste in general, that it's because Indonesia is a large country in terms of population, but also because it's also getting richer and there's also some cultural attitudes towards food as well. And so I think it was interesting to hear that You believe that in many ways, the food waste will get worse in the coming years because of a larger population that's getting richer as well. And lastly, thank you so much for sharing about surplus. I really enjoyed hearing about how your product works in terms of the marketplace. And I think it was interesting because you talk about who you think your customers are in terms of the younger folks are a little bit more amenable to it versus how to work with bad faith actors in terms of food quality and safety. So you're willing to ban people with a 2 strikes process. And also interesting to hear your product roadmap where you are now recycling ugly fruits and vegetables into smoothies as well.
Thank you so much for having me as well, Jeremy. And yeah, let me know if you are in Jakarta.
Yeah, definitely check out Agung's smoothies shops.
Thank you for listening to Brave. If you enjoyed this episode, please share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. We would also appreciate you leaving a rating or review. Head over to www.bravesea.com for member content, resources, and community. Stay well and stay brave.